Ever feel like you're gambling with your life savings every time you get behind the wheel?
Right.
Because that's kind of how car insurance can feel, right?
Yeah.
Like you know you need it, but figuring it all out, ugh, total headache. That's why we're doing this deep dive. You guys requested car insurance demystified, and we're going beyond the basics. We want you to walk away feeling like, okay, I got this. I got the right coverage without emptying my wallet.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, they get caught up in just the legal side, which, don't get me wrong, is crucial, but they forget about the financial protection part. It's a safety net.
So it's more than just like following the law.
Way more. Think
Yeah.
about even a tiny fender bender, right?
Mm.
Those can set you back thousands of dollars. Repairs, medical bills if someone's hurt.
Yeah.
It adds up fast. And without the right coverage, boom, you're stuck with a huge bill.
Okay, yeah, that makes it real. It's like I knew insurance was a thing, but
Right.
hearing it like that, it really hits home why it's so important.
Exactly. It's peace of mind.
Yeah.
It's knowing that if something unexpected happens, you're not facing financial ruin on top of everything else.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we even start navigating this whole car insurance world? Where do we begin?
Well, you mentioned the legal aspect, right?
Yeah.
And that's where liability coverage comes in, the non-negotiable, the must-have in most places.
Okay, so liability insurance 101, what is it actually covering?
Basically, it protects the other person if you cause an accident. We're talking their medical bills, car repairs,
Mm,
even legal fees if things get messy.
gotcha. So it's kind of like me saying, my bad, I'll cover the damage, but what about me? My car, am I just out of luck there?
And that, my friend, is where all those other coverage options come into play. Understanding those is key. First up, protecting your vehicle. That's where collision and comprehensive come in.
Okay, so collision, that's for when I like literally collide with something.
Exactly. Fender benders backing into things. Even if it's your fault, collision helps cover the cost of getting your car fixed.
Right, right. So it's my safety net for, let's call them driving mishaps.
Pretty much.
Okay. What about comprehensive? That sounds way broader.
Comprehensive is for those things you can't control. Think theft, vandalism, hailstorms,
Mm-hmm.
even that random tree branch that falls out of nowhere and cracks your windshield.
Oh no, I've been there. So comprehensive, it's less about how I drive and more about the universe, huh?
You got it. It's that extra protection for those you gotta be kidding me moments.
Speaking of the unexpected medical bills, those can really add up after an accident, even if you're not at fault.
Absolutely. And that's where personal injury protection, or PIP, and MedPay come in. These coverages, they focus on medical expenses for you and anyone else in your car, no matter who caused the accident.
So even if I slam on my brakes, my passenger spills their latte everywhere,
Yep.
we're covered.
Within the limits of your policy, yes. It makes sure everyone gets the medical attention they need without the added stress of, like, whose insurance is paying for this?
That's good to know. But what happens if I'm in an accident and the other driver, they don't have insurance? I've heard horror stories about that.
And that's precisely why you need uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. It's there to protect you if you're hit by someone who either doesn't have insurance or doesn't have enough to cover the costs.
So it's like my protection against irresponsible drivers. This is making me realize there's a lot more to car insurance than I thought.
Right.
But for folks who are leasing or financing their car, anything specific they need to be aware of?
Good catch. We got to talk about gap insurance,
Yeah.
especially if you're driving a newer car.
Gap insurance, that's always sounded kind of mysterious.
It's pretty simple, actually. Imagine you get into an accident, your car's totaled, but you still owe more on the loan than what the car's actually worth.
Yeah.
Gap insurance, it covers that difference.
So it's like it protects me from being upside down on a car loan after an accident. That's huge, especially because new cars lose their value so fast. Okay, so we've talked about all these different coverage types, but how do I know how much is enough? I don't want to be underinsured, but I also don't want to be paying for stuff I don't need.
You've hit the nail on the head, finding the right amount of coverage. It's a balancing act. There's no magic formula that fits everyone. It really depends on you, your specific situation, how much risk you're comfortable with, and of course, your budget.
So how do we find that sweet spot? What factors should we be considering when making these decisions?
And that is exactly what we're going to dive into next. We're going to unpack those state minimum requirements and why they're often just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, listeners, buckle up. We're about to go beyond the basics and uncover the secrets to finding that perfect balance, being protected without breaking the bank. All right, so we're on a mission here to find that sweet spot for car insurance coverage, enough to be protected, but like not end up eating ramen noodles for the rest of the year, right?
Exactly. And you mentioned those state minimum requirements earlier,
Right, yeah.
and those are a good place to start.
Okay.
But, and this is important, they're often just the bare minimum.
Okay, so just checking the box isn't enough. Tell me more about this catch.
Think of it this way. You're in an accident, yeah, and the medical bills alone, they're way more than your state's minimum coverage. Guess what? You're stuck paying the difference.
Ugh, that's like playing financial chicken with my future.
Pretty much.
Not a game I want to play. Okay, so how do we figure out what goes beyond those minimums? Like, what's a good way to approach that?
Well, it starts with really looking at your own financial situation
Okay.
and being honest with yourself. What could you actually afford if the worst happened?
Yeah.
We're talking medical bills, sure. But also, what about things like legal fees? Or if you can't work for a while?
All right. Lost wages? I didn't even think about that.
It all adds up so fast.
Okay, so finances, big factor. What about my car? Does the value of my car play into this whole thing too?
Absolutely. If you're driving around in like a vintage sports car worth a fortune,
Right.
you're going to want to make sure it's insured accordingly.
Right.
Right. But if it's an older car,
Yeah.
it might not make sense to go all out on things like collision or comprehensive coverage.
Right. No point in overinsuring a beater. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about this thing called a deductible? I always hear about that, but
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Deductibles, they can seem confusing, but they're actually pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Think of it like this. It's the amount you agree to pay out of pocket before your insurance kicks in.
Oh, okay.
So higher deductible usually means lower monthly payments, those premiums.
Right.
It's all about finding that balance. What can you afford up front versus every month?
So there's some strategy involved here. I like it. But are there any downsides to going with a higher deductible to save some money?
The key thing is make sure you actually have that deductible amount saved up, just in case.
Right.
Because if you need to make a claim, you don't have the cash,
Yeah.
in trouble.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance, being able to afford the coverage when you need it.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, different types of coverage, those state minimums, deductibles. What else should people be thinking about when it comes to car insurance? What am I missing?
Well, we need to talk about some of the common mistakes people make, mistakes that could really cost them.
Ooh, okay.
And one of the biggest ones I see is forgetting that, well, life happens,
Right.
and your car insurance, it needs to keep up.
Wait, so it's not just a set it and forget it kind of thing?
Definitely not. New job, new state, new baby, any of those.
Oh, yeah.
They can all affect your coverage needs.
Right.
Ignoring those changes could mean you have gaps in your protection, or even that you're paying for stuff you don't even need anymore.
Well, see, I always just figured once I had the policy, I was good to go.
Nope.
So regular checkups are important. What other traps should we be on the lookout for? Well, we talked about those state minimum requirements and how they're often just a starting point.
Right.
So let's dive into that a little deeper and uncover some of the most common and costly car insurance mistakes people make.
Oh, this is good stuff. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk car insurance mistakes. Those facepalm moments we want to help you guys avoid.
Yeah, and one of the biggest ones, like we've been saying, is thinking those state minimum requirements are enough.
Yeah.
They're a start, sure, but often they just don't cut it if you're in a real accident.
Like ordering a tiny appetizer when you're actually starving.
Exactly. You might save a few bucks on your premiums each month, but get into an accident. Those minimal limits could leave you drowning in expenses.
Yeah, those medical bills and potential lawsuits can really add up. Okay, lesson learned, don't skimp on the coverage. What other insurance traps should we be dodging out there?
Here's a big one, forgetting about discounts.
Oh.
You know, a lot of insurance companies, they offer discounts for things like having a good driving record, bundling your car insurance with other policies.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. Some even give discounts for safety features in your car, like airbags.
So being a safe driver and having airbags actually saves you money? I had no idea.
It's like a secret menu of savings. Don't be shy. Ask your insurer about every single discount you can think of. You might be surprised what you qualify for.
Okay, so be proactive. Ask about discounts. Got it. Anything else?
Okay, this one might seem obvious, but it's a trap people fall into all the time, not shopping around for quotes.
So don't just go with the first insurance quote I get, even if it's from a big, well-known company.
Nope. Insurance rates, they could be all over the place. Different companies, different prices. So you got to shop around, compare quotes. Don't be afraid to negotiate a little either.
Like haggling at a flea market, but for car insurance.
You got it. And here's a pro tip. Those online comparison websites, They're a good starting point, but don't rely on them entirely. Reach out to some independent insurance agents too. They often have access to even more options and can give you more personalized advice.
Okay, so shop around, compare quotes, don't be afraid to haggle a bit, and check out those independent agents. Great advice. Now, what about the fine print? Anything we should be watching out for there?
You bring up a great point. It's easy to just skim over the fine print, but that's where those pesky exclusions like to hide.
Exclusions. Okay, those don't sound good. What are we talking about here?
So exclusions are basically situations where your insurance won't cover you.
Okay.
They can be things like using your personal car for business, like if you're doing deliveries or something, without the right coverage. Or damage from things like earthquakes or floods. It kind of depends where you live.
So I decided to start a side hustle delivering pizzas in my car. I should probably let my insurance company know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Always better to be upfront about how you use your car so you have the right coverage.
This deep dive has been amazing. Honestly, I feel like I've learned so much from those state minimums to asking about discounts, all the stuff about exclusions. I feel so much more prepared to actually deal with car insurance now.
That's great to hear. And remember, if you're ever unsure about anything, confused about your policy, definitely reach out to a qualified insurance professional. They can help you figure it all out.
Solid advice. A huge thank you to our expert for guiding us through this car insurance maze.
Happy to help.
We hope you feel as empowered as we do, listeners, knowing what questions to ask, what mistakes to avoid, and maybe even how to save a little money along the way. That's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, drive safe out there.